You can fade it out. Hey guys, welcome back to a new podcast on the Prairie Puck Boys. Today we're going to do the Half Court podcast with me and Noah. Noah, if you want to talk about yourself, introduce yourself.
What's up? How's it going? I have been playing and watching basketball since I was a young kid, and I'm a Laker fan, so I am a little bit biased towards present and former Laker players. But overall, I mean, I've watched hundreds and hundreds of games, so I think I got, pretty solid. I kind of know what I'm talking about a little bit, but yeah, I'm excited to start the new podcast, and hopefully maybe at some point we can get some other guys from the Prairie Puck Boys, or I can get on that podcast at some point and we can go from there.
And yeah, as you guys know, I am Mike. I'm in the Prairie Puck Boys. I as well have been playing, watching, reffing basketball for the last 10 years. So this first list here will be very important, I think. And today we're starting with our top 50 players of the decade. We did it a little bit late. We just both got to Lethbridge, so we're going to start it right now with number 50. And Noah, I'm going to get you to go first.
All right, well, my number 50 spot, again, me being a Laker fan and going for somebody who played for the Lakers for a couple years, my number 50 pick is Steve Nash. Now, obviously, he didn't play in the 2010s that much, and his prime was pretty noticeably in the 2000s. But, I mean, honestly, you look back at his stats from 2010, 2011, he was still averaging 16, 15 points a game, and he was obviously getting his assists as he does. His career did decline pretty rapidly after 2012, but I think honestly, like those first couple years in the decade, you can't really fault. So that's my number 50 pick.
All right, for me, my number 50 is Lou Williams. I think the fact that he's been able to score as much as he has been off the bench has been unreal. He averaged 16.1 points per game coming off the bench. And I think he's just been a great spark plug off the bench. He won those 3 Six Man of the Year awards so far in his career, and I think he did a very good job with the Raptors, particularly in their rise to stardom. Oh, okay, I say stardom, but rise to being decent.
I mean, you want to talk about stardom, though, the Clippers team that he's been on for the past couple of years. I genuinely don't think, especially last year when they didn't really have any superstars, and him and Montrezl Harrell were kind of the guys who would come off the bench and just be an instant spark plug, right?
Yeah.
And easy. He's walking, 15, 16 points?
He could easily. He could start on any team, but he chooses to be on the bench. He's an ultimate team player, I think, and I think he just wants to win. And I think that's one reason why I have him at 50.
I have him at 49, so just a little bit higher. Pretty close, but I mean, again, like you said, he's invaluable to a team that's trying to win a championship, and this Clippers team this year averaging 19, and that's even with the superstars that are Kawhi and Paul George, who we will have a lot higher on this list, but he's invaluable to a playoff team and championship team.
So you talked about your 49. I'll talk about mine now. My 49 is Paul Millsap. I think he's a very underrated player in my opinion. He made 4 All-Star games in this past 10 years here. I think he does a very good job of playing the pick and pop game. He's one of the main stretch fours that kind of came into the league and started that. I think he's done a very good job of scoring the ball as well. He averages 15 points a game, and he really was a key factor in that Hawks run back in 2016, I believe it was. Too bad they ran into LeBron.
Yeah.
But I think if LeBron wasn't in the conference there, they definitely would have made it to the finals and maybe could have won it potentially.
I think Millsap is a good player. I mean, nobody can discredit that, but I have him outside of my top 50. I mean, he's a fringe guy. I don't disagree with you putting him in there, but I just do think there are guys who are better, which leads me on to my number 48, which is Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward, obviously that ankle injury he had a few seasons back kind of derailed him for a little bit, but this season he's kind of back to where he wants to be. I mean, averaging 17 points a game, and you look back to even his days in Utah, he was pretty unreal, averaging 21.9 in 2016, 2017. And then obviously, I think he would have been able to keep that up had he not gotten injured, but he slowly kind of made his way back, and I think he's having almost an all-star year this year, 10 years into his career.
Yeah, my 48 is going to be a recent player. Not a lot of people might have him higher or on this list at all, but I'm going to go with Nikola Jokic. I think he's only been good for 2-3 years, but I think those 2 to 3 years really show how good of a big man he truly is. The way he can pass the ball, the way he can shoot the ball. He's a very good stretch center. He has been averaging 16.3 points per game, 9.6 rebounds, and 5.1 assists.
Yeah, I mean, Jokic, I have him way higher up on my list, actually. I have him in the 30s, actually. I think he's, even though, like you said, he's only been in the league he's been in the league for a little bit, he's only really been a superstar for the past couple of years. Those 2-3 years that he's been that star for the Nuggets, he's just been unreal. Like the eyes that he has for passing, and he can really do it all. He's about as good of a walking triple-double as you can get for a 7 foot, 200+ guy who really doesn't look that athletic out there. But anyways, moving on to my number 47, I actually have DeMarcus Cousins, and I do think some people may have him a little bit higher up on this list, but I think he doesn't really have the accolades to back anything up, and I base my list pretty heavily on just what I see when I watch the games. And yeah, he's a good piece, but looking back to his days in Sacramento and then obviously his couple years in New Orleans, he was never really able to kind of lead the team anywhere. He obviously is going to get his. He averaged 25.2 his last season in New Orleans, so he's not a slouch when it comes to the offensive end, but he just never was able to lead a team anywhere. And obviously joining the Golden State Warriors, he didn't really need to, but then at the same time he also was plagued by injuries and still is with the Lakers. But
yeah, I had Boogie at 40. I just think the way he played those 4 to 5 years between Sacramento and the Pelicans, and I think without that Achilles injury that he suffered, I think he would still be at that level.
Oh, absolutely. If he hadn't got injured, he would be still. I don't know if you'd be able to, because the thing with the modern NBA, right, is you kind of got to stretch the floor, and I'm not sure if he would have been able to do that super well, but he's still a guy that you would love to have on your team any day of the week.
So for my 47, I have Brook Lopez. I think the way he started the decade with the Nets and the way he was the inside presence for that team really helped them offensively. Darren Williams wasn't the only guy there who was averaging the most points on the team, as Brook Lopez averaged the most for 2 years, I believe, in 2010 and 2011. And I just think the way that he's been able to redefine his career and reshape the way he plays basketball by shooting deep threes in Milwaukee now. And I think just the way he's been able to build his career going up and still be a consistent player, I think he's done a very good job of being that type of player. And that's why I have him at 47.
Yeah, no, he's one of those guys that has, like I was talking about with Cousins, who saw that he needed to change his game to fit the modern NBA, and he did that very, very nicely. Like I don't think he averaged a 3-pointer for his entire time in New Jersey, and then going to Brooklyn. At the end of his Brooklyn, he started at the end of his Brooklyn tenure, he started to shoot a few more. But I mean, looking at what he's doing for Milwaukee last season, shooting over 6 a game and with Giannis not being able to shoot the ball that well, that was a very big key to what made that team so successful. Moving on to my number 46, Mike. I know you have this guy way higher. And honestly, looking at my list, I might have him a little bit too low. I have DeMar DeRozan. Obviously, again, you can't discredit how amazing DeMar DeRozan has been for the Raptors and then now the San Antonio Spurs. But again, he just wasn't able to get the Toronto Raptors over that hump that they needed to. Clearly, bringing in Kawhi showed that all they needed was one guy who could kind of take over that team. And while DeMar DeRozan is a good player, and I do think he would be valuable for a championship team, I just don't think he's able to be that guy for a championship team. I think he'd be a good second or third option, but that's how I discredit him. Obviously, again, he's another guy who's just a walking bucket, getting 21, 22, 23 a night right now. But I just don't think he's able to lead a team to where they need to be by himself.
Yeah, no, I had DeMar at 32, and I will talk about why a little bit later. My 46 is Jamal Crawford. I think he's been the best sixth man in the last 10 years. I think he's been so consistent the last 10 years, averaging around 15 points the whole entire decade. He's done a very good job of staying consistent and being that 3-point kind of shooter off the bench and being that spark plug, just like I said about Lou Will. They're very similar players, That handle is a very deadly weapon on him.
Jamal needs a job right now. That's all I can say. Jamal needs a job.
He doesn't have a job. He could have easily won Sixth Man of the Year for the last 10 years. His numbers throughout the last 10 years really show that he could have won it every single year.
Yeah, he's not a guy I have on my list, but I mean, you could make the case that either him or Lou Will are the best sixth man of all time. Like that's how good they are. They know their roles, but they also know when to kind of take over a game, and they both have that ability. Moving on to 45, a guy that I'm not really a big fan of, but it's Paul Pierce. Now, same thing with Steve Nash, as I said earlier. He did have his prime in the 2000s and obviously the championship with the Celtics in 2008. But he still, I mean, the shot he had with the Nets against the Raptors, the game that he called bank instead of game, obviously that's a memorable moment. And he says he still had good moments over the 2010s, but I just, if we're doing this since 2000 to 2020, then obviously he would be top 20, top 15, somewhere around there. He was unreal, but he's this guy who was older coming into the 2010s and then wasn't able to do too much.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I have Paul Pierce at 45 as well. I just think that despite him getting older in age, I still think he had that impact with teams. I think he had the impact with the Wizards as well when he joined the Wizards, being able to hit that other game winner he had against the Hawks that one year too. And I just think he kept finding ways to continue to contribute. He averaged 18 points, I think, for the years that he played during the decade. So he did a very good job of staying consistent throughout the years, despite him getting older. So now let's move on to 44. Who do you have?
44, I got Bradley Beal. So again, I think Bradley Beal is in the same sort of vein as DeMar DeRozan. Nobody can discredit the fact that they can walk the ball up the court and clear out the half of the court and then ISO and get any points they want, right? But again, I don't think he can be that guy. Obviously, looking at the Wizards and their current record this year, he hasn't really able to do too much with John Wall on the sidelines. But I think again, if he can find a situation that he can be maybe not the guy, but a guy that if their first option isn't doing very well, then he can step up and get like a 25, 30-point game. Then I think that's going to be the best role for him. And he's still, I don't know exactly how young he is, but I think he's still going into the
26 now.
Yeah, going into the 2020s, he'll be probably a little bit higher if once we do this in a decade again.
Yeah. I don't have Bradley Beal on my list for some reason. I think he just completely slipped my mind. He's supposed to be on my list, but not. So I'm not going to predict where he would be or anything like that, but he is on my list. I'm just saying that now. For my 44, I have Tyson Chandler. I think he's just been a defensive player throughout the decade. His peak being with the Mavericks when they won that title, his Defensive Player of the Year award that he won. He's just been a solid player throughout this decade on the defensive side of the floor. For me, when I judged this, I did make defense a huge factor. It's not all about their offensive game and their accolades and stuff like that. I did put defense very high up there as well. As you'll see later on, I do have players depending on their defense up there. And I think that Tyson Chandler was one of the key reasons the Mavs won that championship. From there and onwards from there, he really stepped up on defense.
Tyson Chandler's the guy I left on my list, actually, and I remembered him. I just didn't. I have other guys who were kind of mainly focused on defense, as you'll see later on in this list. I don't know. I just think, while he was a very key piece to that puzzle, obviously I've been talking about accolades for Beal and DeRozan. He does have the championship. He does have the Defensive Player of the Year. But I think there's guys this decade who had his same role and did it substantially better. So that's the main reason why I left him off the list. But moving on to 43, I actually have Mike Conley. So Mike Conley, again, is a guy who he's a good point guard for the modern NBA. He's not having his best season right now in Utah, but I think that might be just because it's a new situation for him. And, I mean, obviously there's going to be all kinds of factors with that. But looking back to his years in Memphis, I mean, he was... he obviously got his assists. He was never a super. He never shot over 50% for a season, but he's always been a consistent 45-46% shooter from 2-point, and then about 35-36 from 3. So he's a very reliable guy. He's I think his game's gonna, once he kind of figures everything out in Utah, I think his game's gonna go very well as he ages and isn't as athletic and kind of has to rely on other people more.
Yeah, I actually have him in the same spot. He was one of the grit and grind guys for the Grizzlies back then. He got them past the Spurs that one year. They just did a very good job of beating that grit and grind type team, averaging 15.8 points a game during his 10-year run here. He didn't get any All-Star games. He kind of might have got snubbed some years, but
I think he should have been an All-Star. I don't know exactly what year, but definitely should have been.
Yeah,
he should have been there once or twice.
Yeah. And it's kind of like Damian Lillard as well. He missed a couple All-Star games as well. He'll be a lot later. But yeah, that's why I think Mike Conley deserves to be on this list, just for his consistency on and off the floor.
Speaking of consistency over the decade, my number 42 is Serge Ibaka. Serge Ibaka is a guy who, when he came into the league with the Thunder, he was kind of more known as a defensive player. And while he still does get his blocks and is still a force on the defensive end, he has also evolved his offensive game to be not amazing, but he's definitely he can get a bucket when the Raptors need him right now. And he was, like other people higher up in this list, was a huge contributor to that Raptors championship this year. And I just think he's honestly just a perfect guy for that Raptors team. He knows his role. He's not going to be trying to do too much, but he's consistent. And that's exactly what that Raptors team is all about.
Yeah, we are similar again. I have Ibaka at 42 as well. Just the way that he's been able to evolve his game from defensive shot blocker. Obviously, he averaged 3 blocks a game one season. Just being able to consistently be that guy for OKC, like when they needed somebody to score inside, he was there for them as well. And just before Steven Adams got there, he was a huge reason as to why they went to the finals, for example, which, again, they ran into LeBron. LeBron's going to be a consistent person in the way of people in this video. But yeah, I just think he did a very good job of developing a three-point shot, so he wasn't just one-dimensional in the paint dunker, and just being able to block the way he was able to. Serge Ibaka at 42.
I think, and the other, going back to Ibaka here, I think the other thing that makes him is just he just seems like a great guy in the locker room and just teammate. Like, he seems, I don't know if anybody's ever watched that How Hungry Are You, whatever that video does, just with Kawhi Lassiter and just had a few other people. He just seems like a really nice guy, and he just seems to love his teammates, and he seems to love playing with them, and I think that's super important when it comes to best players of the decade. Anyways, moving on to number 41, I have Kemba Walker, actually. So, while he doesn't have the accolades, and I mainly chalk that up to him being in Charlotte and their front office just not being able to figure anything else out around him. I never think he was the problem for that team. He, got he played. He wasn't a great defender, but he was he held his own. And I think going forward in Boston this next decade, he's going to be a force, especially with that Boston team being super young. He's going to be able to kind of lead them, and I'm not sure if he's going to get a title, but I think they can make a playoff run, and I think that's kind of what he's been missing. I think he's wanted to be in the playoffs for a long time. He just hasn't had the chance.
Yeah, I agree with you definitely there. My 41 is Rajon Rondo. I think he's been a very underrated point guard the last 10 years. He has a couple All-Star games, 3 All-Star games. What he does on the offensive side of the floor with his vision is just unbelievable. He just continues to be able to set up his teammates consistently. 2015, he averaged 11.7 assists per game.
That's crazy.
On a Sacramento team that consisted of basically him and Boogie. He did a very good job of staying consistently, passing the ball, and setting up his open teammates. He doesn't score the ball quite like the other point guards, but that's not what he's there to do. He's there to play defense and make passes to his teammates, and I think he does a very good job of that.
No, he's definitely a guy who knows his role. He knows a bit of a complaint I have with the Lakers. He's shooting a few too many threes for my liking, but he when you go back to his years in Boston, I know it's a little bit before 2010s, and then kind of moving into the 2010s, he definitely knew his role. He was just a pass first guy, and like Mike said, his vision's unreal. For the 40 to 31, did you want to start first so I'm not overtaking all your stuff here?
I will definitely go first. So my 40 is Boogie. We kind of already talked about him a little bit. So we won't have to talk about him too much more. But again, just the way that he's been able to consistently score the ball inside. He is a dominant force inside when he's healthy, and I really hope he gets back to form when he comes back next year for the Lakers.
Yeah, so my number 40 is Joakim Noah. So I think if he had been able to stay even relatively consistent throughout this decade, he would skyrocket up this list. But because he has kind of fallen off the face of the planet these past couple of years, I wasn't able to put him as high. But when you look back to his years with the Bulls, he was top 3 in MVP voting one year. He basically led the Bulls into the number 1 seed when that year Rose was hurt for most of the year, and he was just defensive anchor. Didn't really do too much on offense, but did what he needed to do. But mainly his defense was unreal, and he was a monster.
Yeah. My 39 is DeAndre Jordan. I think he has the most rebounds in the decade, so there's not a lot more to say. But Drummond almost passed him on that this year. Yeah.
He was getting there.
He was getting there. But I think DeAndre did a very, very good job of being that kind of center that protects the rim for the Clippers. Not that anybody really got past Chris Paul very often, but when they did, he was there to get the blocks. He was there to get the defensive rebound. He was there to just generally be that rim-protected defensive, I'm going to dunk the ball on the other end of the floor type guy. And that dunk on Brandon Knight,
sheesh.
That alone really helps him to get on this list.
Yeah. So my number 39, I actually totally forgot I had this guy on the list. I have Paul Millsap, so I think Mike had mentioned him earlier. He's just a guy who isn't too flashy, but he's just consistent. The team needs him to get a bucket. He can get a bucket. But I think Mike pretty much mentioned everything that Paul Millsap stands for. So moving on to number 38.
My 38 is Kevin Garnett. Even though he kind of got his older ages, and this was kind of the year where he declined, I think he still had a pretty big impact on the 2010s. His time in Brooklyn, he was still a good shooter from the wing area, not really three-pointers, but more the wing area. And he really helped that wannabe championship Nets team when they made that really bad trade.
If everybody on that team was in their prime, that'd be a scary team. But too bad they're all dinosaurs.
It would have all been. That team would have won maybe 2 championships if they're all together at least, although you'd have to go through LeBron to do it. So who knows if you really could have done that. But I just think that Kevin Garnett was the heart of that team when he was on the floor. Injuries did kind of plague him throughout the 2010s, which is why I have him a little bit lower than I should. But I think that's a huge factor as well, the fact that he was injured for so long.
Yeah, for sure. So my 38 and 37 have actually both already been touched on, so I'm just going to kind of group them together, and that being Rajon Rondo and Kevin Garnett. So like I said, Kevin Garnett, like as Mike said, Kevin Garnett's a guy who, I mean, he's an intense player, but I think he's a guy that you want on your team, and he's definitely a guy you want on your team and hate going up against when he's not on your team. And I think honestly, same thing for Rondo. He's just a hardworking guy, and if we've been doing this list for the 2000s, these guys would both be a lot higher, but because it is kind of the tail end of both of their careers, we just couldn't put them too much higher.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, as I talked about earlier. My 37 is Kemba Walker. I think just coming into the league, he was an underrated player, coming in for an underrated team, and he was really the point guard of their future for a long time there. And the fact that he has the most points in Charlotte Hornets history, and the fact Bobcats/Hornets, sorry. The fact that he was able to carry that offense the way that he did, and just the way that he continues to show that he is a bulldog. He is that underrated player that he is that came into the league. And the fact that he averaged 19.8 throughout the 10 years, and just the fact that he's been able to shoot the ball consistently as well and continue to push his teams past where they should be expectation-wise.
Well, the thing I like about Kemba is even though he did leave this year, he very easily could have, after his 3rd or 4th year in Charlotte, he could have been, you know what, you guys aren't doing anything around me. I'm out here. I want. He could have requested a trade or could have re-signed, but he stuck through it as long as you could have thought he would have. And I commend that, because a lot of guys just don't. I don't think a lot of guys would have that patience. So, again, just another good team guy to have on the roster.
Yeah, the fact that he can be a 3-time All-Star on a team like the Hornets, carried them to the All-Star, or carried them to the playoffs a couple times. Although he couldn't get past D Wade because the fan decided to piss off D Wade and he went on that tear. But yeah, going to my 36, I have Rudy Gobert. Some people might not have him just because he hasn't played for very long, but I have
him higher.
You have him higher, perfect. I just think that he has been the defensive anchor for Utah these last couple of years. When he came into the league, he was a very raw prospect. I think the fact that he's been able to grow the way he has been, 2 Defensive Player of the Years, could have been 3, but Draymond kind of got in the way of that. But the way that he has been able to block shots and be that defensive anchor, he really is, in my opinion, the MVP for the Utah Jazz the last couple of years. I know Donovan Mitchell has been very, very good, but I think Rudy Gobert is one of the reasons why they win a lot of games because he's just so good on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I don't think moving along with that, like I said, Rudy Gobert is higher on my list, but I think for that Utah Jazz team, Donovan Mitchell is kind of the poster boy. But I would say Rudy Gobert is kind of the guy behind the scenes making all the moves that get the team to where they need to be because, like I said, he is the anchor for that team. But I have a few more things to say about him later on. But my 36 pick, as mentioned before, is Nikola Jokic. I think if we do this again for the 2020s, he could easily be top 5 if he can get in shape and kind of work on small little things in his game. But I mean, the fact that he can go out and get a triple-double and he's really not that athletic and all these things just speaks volumes about how good his court vision is, how smart he is on the offensive and defensive ends. I think he's definitely a guy to look forward to this year, and I've been keeping an eye on him with this team because I got him on my fantasy basketball team, so I've been definitely keeping a radar on him.
My 35 is a guy that I think should be in the Hall of Fame come in the future, and I really hope he does, and that's Tony Parker. I think the way that he has been able to stay consistent with the Spurs for so long has really been a burden for them. He averaged 14.4 points throughout the playoffs, and he was just a defensive and offensive anchor for them when they went up against that Heat team the first time when they won. I mean, Mario Chalmers was the point guard, to be fair, but just the way that he was being able to be consistent, he scored the game-winning bucket in one of the games. He's able to continuously change his game to keep people guessing, and I think that he did a very good job alongside Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili to continue to play consistently, set up his teammates, and just be able to be that all-around point guard that he needed to be for the Spurs.
Yeah, so I'm moving on to my 35 is DeAndre Jordan. So again, as Mike mentioned, he, I mean, what can you really say about him? Most rebounds in the decade, and he was similar to what Blake Griffin has done, just in a different way. He kind of came into the league as more of just like a pure athleticism guy, and that's really all he did, minus the defense. But as he's kind of aged, and now that he's with Brooklyn, he doesn't need to have as big as a role in the team, so he's completely fine with doing that and kind of taking a step back and letting guys like Chris Paul or Kyrie or those types of guys kind of run things, and he's more than happy to just play some good defense, get some buckets when they need him to, and kind of call it a day from there.
Yeah, and even the NBA recognized it too, giving him a couple All-NBA nods, defensive nods as well. He was able to really guide his team in a good way. My 34 is John Wall. It's kind of been hard to evaluate John Wall just because he has been hurt the last 2 or 3 years here. Injuries has really plagued him. But when he does play, he's a very explosive point guard. He's one of the faster point guards out there. I don't know if he'll lose a step when it comes to the 2020s here when he comes back. But I really hope that he does have that bounce back and he continues to be a great playmaker for the Wizards. Like that one year where he averaged 10.1 assists, I think that's one of his best years for sure. He averaged 19 and 9 during the whole entire decade, which is really hard to do. I think Chris Paul probably had the most, but he definitely did a great job of setting up his teammates and being explosive at the same time throughout the 2010s.
Yeah, I have John Wall at the same position. I think he, I hope he can come back and be something. Like I would hate to see injuries derail his career because I mean he's super fun to watch when he's on the floor, and when he comes back and he has Bradley Beal, I think that duo might be pretty unstoppable if the Wizards can build something around him. But I think Mike pretty much mentioned everything. So, and he's definitely been a dude this decade.
Just gonna double check. It was 10.7, not 10.1 for his assists that 1 year. All right. So moving on to my 33, it's another six-man, Manu Ginobili. I think the fact that he's been able to consistently guide this bench unit is the perfect thing for him. I think the fact that Greg Popovich put so much into his hands on the bench unit is one of the reasons why he's been such a great player throughout the 10 years, for the past 20 years even. The fact that he could have started for this team for so many years over Danny Green probably, but he decided that he wanted to carry the bench unit. He wanted to be that guy off the bench. Really shows the leadership that he had and the fact that he was able to help elevate the players both on the starting lineup and the bench unit.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So moving on to my number 33, again, someone who Mike has mentioned earlier, Rudy Gobert. I think he's invaluable to a team. I think every team that wants to be successful needs a guy like Rudy Gobert, who, I mean, I don't have his stats off the top of my head, but I mean, he's never been a big offensive guy, and he's never really wanted to or needed to be. He's a guy who loves playing defense, and his Defensive Player of the Year awards can back that up. And I think he's got a game that is going to be able to age well coming into the next decade. So I think he might be on this list again in the next 10 years.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. Moving on to number 32 for me, I have DeMar DeRozan. He did talk about it a little bit earlier. As a Raptor fan, this is a little bit of a homer pick. Obviously, Bleacher Report had him in 49, but they used advanced stats and stuff like that, which, I mean...
I'm not really big into advanced stats. It does show some things, but I'd rather just watch a game and kind of see for myself.
But anyway, back to DeMar. 4-time All-Star, two-time All-NBA player. Just the way that he was able to help the rise of the Raptors team with Kyle Lowry. I think he did a very good job of consistently scoring the ball for this team. I mean, I don't really like the way that they developed him by just giving him the ball in isolation and just letting him go. Obviously, that helped his development for himself, but I think that kind of made it his peak for his assists, which I think he's doing a very good job in right now for the Spurs. Also, thanks to DeMar for helping us get Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to shout out to DeMar DeRozan for being the sacrificial lamb so the Raptors could get their title.
But yeah, to be able to average 20 points throughout the whole decade and be 18th there, I think that really helps him be one of the better players. And I hope they retire his jersey.
I think they definitely should. Moving on to my number 32. I wish I could put this guy higher. I can't. It's Derrick Rose. I know he won an MVP at the start of the decade, but outside of this year, he just hasn't been what I think he could have been, which is really sad to think about because he was one of the promising superstars at the beginning of the decade, and he's obviously he's been plagued with injuries and whatnot, but I think he still deserves a place on this list, and I'm super happy to see his resurgence this season. And actually, I saw a stat on Twitter a couple days ago. His per 36 minute stats are on par with his per 36 of his MVP year, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I think he deserves a spot on this list. And seeing that was a 60-point game, I think, with Minnesota. 50 point game. Sorry, with Minnesota last year was one of the cooler moments in the entire decade, I'd say. So. Yeah,
I also have him at 31. 32? Did you have him at 32?
I had him at 32, so you got him a bit higher than me.
I have him at 31. I just think the way that he was able to evolve his game throughout his whole entire first 5-6 years, people said that he couldn't shoot the ball. He was not a three-point shooter. Colin Cowherd comes to mind first. He said that he wasn't that player anymore. He had a couple decent seasons after his MVP season, but you could tell that he wasn't himself anymore after that injury.
I think he was. I think at some certain point when he was still with the Bulls, like his last couple of years with them, it almost looked like he was just like scared to drive. Like he had been injured so many times, and I don't blame him for that. I mean, I would probably be in the same boat. Like, I mean, having to be injured and go through that rehab and come back and the same thing happen to you over and over again, that must be just absolutely demoralizing. But I like I said, I love seeing him back to a almost all-star this season.
Yeah, he's definitely been able to rejuvenate his game. And I think one of the reasons why he's been able to do this is because he was the youngest ever MVP. So he peaked at the very beginning of his career. So when he did go down and he did have all these problems, he still had time to up himself and be able to have that confidence. And you can tell he still has the love for the game out there.
So I got a question for you, actually. So now that since we're talking about Derrick Rose, is if he hadn't been hurt, where do you think he would rank on this list? Because I think he would easily be top 5.
I think he'd definitely be over in the top 5. I think he would have won at least 2 or 3 MVPs in the 10 years. He definitely would be a lot higher on this list, top 10 for sure.
Just like looking back at that MVP season, like nobody could do anything about it. Just the explosiveness and the verticality of his game, and like I said, like if he had continued to develop without the injuries and developed a jump shot, I don't think anybody in the league would have been able to stop him. My 31. Again, somebody who was mentioned before is Tony Parker. He was obviously a key piece to that San Antonio Spurs team, and just meshed very well with Pop's system and playing with Tim Duncan and Manu and other guys later on in his career. So he definitely, I think he slots in very well at 31. Do you want me to go first for 30?
Sure, go for it.
All right, so moving on to 30, I have LaMarcus Aldridge. Did you had Aldridge already on this list, right?
No, he's a couple spots later for me.
I just think he's been a guy who's just so consistent. He, going back even when he was at the Trailblazers with Lillard and now with the Spurs, he's I classify him as just like the perfect Spurs guy. Not super flashy, doesn't do too much that people are gonna say, wow, he's not gonna end up on highlight reels a whole lot, but he's just a guy that you love to have on the team, and I think he's a perfect guy to play under Pop.
Yeah, he definitely. I'll talk about it a little bit later. For my 30, I have Andre Iguodala. Obviously, he's not the guy who's gonna explode on you numbers wise. Obviously, he's more of an impact player, more of a role player type of deal. The way he plays defense, the way he guarded LeBron in that playoffs. I mean, he didn't stop him from averaging almost a triple-double.
I don't think you can stop LeBron. If
Yeah.
LeBron wants to do something, he can do it.
Yeah, so I think just the way that he kind of slowed him down a little bit and the way that he got that Finals MVP to show for it is very good for the Warriors. I think the fact that he did have a couple 17-point-per-game years for the Nuggets is able to really show the value that he had, and I think that's why he did so well in Golden State, because that team was a very do-your-job type of team, and I think that's why he makes it on this list, just because of his impact that he has on the defensive and offensive side of the ball, just to get people open and help find the open teammate.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to my number 25, I have Al Horford. Al Horford's a guy I find similar to LaMarcus Aldridge in terms of he's not super flashy. He's not going to be ending up on highlight reels, but I think he's just a guy that, looking back to his Atlanta days and then Boston and obviously now Philadelphia, he's a guy that's able to stretch the floor. Last season, he seemed to be the only guy who was able to stop Embiid, but now that he's on the same team as Embiid, I don't know who's going to be stopping him. Yeah, he's been one of the most consistent players, not only this decade but his entire career. He's never averaged more than 17, but never averaged less than 10. He's always been right in the middle, like kind of 12, 13, 14 range. And I think that's an invaluable piece to have on a team. And with the Sixers contending this year, I think he's underrated with that team, but he's definitely a guy that they need.
Just out of curiosity, was that 29 or 25?
29.
Okay, good. You said 25, so I was like,
29.
You
My
skipped
bad.
5 minutes. Anyway, I'm the same way. I have Al Horford at 29 too. I think the way that he was able to be that leader for that Hawks team, that was really good. Like 60 win that year.
They were like an underrated good, which is weird. Like you didn't think they were gonna come out and be that good, but they just had all the right pieces that just meshed very well together. And Horford, as you said, was kind of the key piece in that. So
yeah. And yeah, there's not much to say about Horford. You kind of said it all.
Yeah. Speaking of guys who we basically said it all, I got at 28 Andre Iguodala. If you erase that block from James in Game 7, he's
that's the hero again.
Yeah. But no, he's been that juggernaut Warriors team. He was kind of I wouldn't say he was the glue, but he was definitely a guy that even though he was more dominant in his earlier years, he was able to kind of take a step back to the younger guys and just kind of play his role, play defense, average what he needs to average on the offensive end, and obviously it worked out because they got their rings. So
Yeah. So my 28, just going back to what you said earlier, is LaMarcus Aldridge. I think that year that he came to the San Antonio Spurs in 2016 and still having Tim Duncan there for his last year and them kind of still thinking Duncan was the man in San Antonio, and the fact that he wasn't getting the touches he wanted and he was really down and everything like that with the team. He wanted to be traded at one point. And then the fact that Popovich just kind of talked to him a bit, he listened to Pop. He was able to really rejuvenate what he did in San Antonio. He's been great ever since. He now has DeMar DeRozan with him in San Antonio. The team should be a little bit better than they are right now, but he definitely does a very good job of being that consistent player, like you said, consistent 2010 guy throughout the 2010s, and he's just going to get you buckets, and he's going to get you key rebounds, and I especially loved when he played with Damian Lillard.
But that's just talking about the overall Spurs team. That team's just insane. Like the way that they can get guys who, I mean, DeMar's a little bit of a flashier player, but it just feels like since I've been watching basketball, they just always had superstars who didn't want to be superstars, but could drop buckets on your head anytime they wanted. It's kind of insane. And talking about that, at my 27, I actually have Manu Ginobili. So a guy similar to like Andre Iguodala or Lou Will, who obviously could have started on most teams, but knew what his role was and was happy to play that role. And obviously it worked out because they got their championship in 2014, 2014, I think. It was 2014. Or 2013. I don't know. I'm getting my years mixed up. It doesn't matter. Yeah, he was kind of just that spark plug they needed off the bench when they needed to give Tony Parker and Tim Duncan some rest, and he was ready to go.
Yeah, my 27, I wish I could put him higher because I love him. He's such a great player in my opinion. Is Kyle Lowry. He's the heart and soul of that Raptors team. Like, doesn't matter what he's averaging points wise, assists wise. If he's having a bad game, he's gonna take a charge for you. If he's having a bad game, he's gonna pass the ball to his teammates and get 10 assists. If he is having a bad game, he's gonna drive and try and penetrate and get people open. He's just been a consistently good and hustle player for this team, and I think it's really helped them kind of be able to grow like they have been. The team's been growing as Kyle Lowry grows, and I think this team has been able to really get where they want to be, obviously winning that championship last year. And can't you tell I'm a Raptors fan? And just the way that he was able to explode into the scene, he decided to lose all that weight that he had, and he just really evolved as a player. I think that's one of the reasons why I have him at 27.
Yeah, so I have him at 25, but I'll talk about him now just so we don't waste time later on. I think he's definitely a guy that there's always been nights where he doesn't shoot very well, and he understands that. So he then, like you said, like he says, all right, I'm going to lock in on defense. I'm going to get my teammates the ball. I'm going to do all the intangible things like taking charges and whatnot. Like he's such a multi-dimensional player, and I think he can turn on all these different things on different nights. So it's hard for teams to kind of game plan for him because you don't really know what he's going to do on a night in, night out basis. But my 26 is Carmelo Anthony. Again, he's another guy I wish I could have him higher. And I'm super happy. Same thing with Derrick Rose, that he's having a pretty good year for Portland right now. But I mean, you look back to his 2011, 2012, 2013 seasons with the Knicks, and I mean, you couldn't stop him. If he wanted to get a bucket, he was getting a bucket. There was really nothing you could do about it. So he doesn't really have the individual accolades. I mean, he obviously has his All-Stars. I think he has a few All-NBA teams, but I think adding a championship for Melo would be huge. But I don't see that happening, at least with him still being on the Portland Trail Blazers and them not being the best team this season.
Yeah, so I'm the same. I also have Melo at 26. I think the biggest thing that kind of brings him down in this list for me as well is the fact that he wasn't willing to take that lower role when people needed him.
I'm with you on that one.
The fact that he didn't want to be the third option in OKC, or the fact that he didn't want to come off the bench for the Rockets. I mean,
not only did he not want to be the third option, he didn't want to be the second option.
Yeah.
He even though he's aging and he's obviously been in the league for 15 years, I think, 16 years. He still sees himself as what he was 10 years ago, and I just don't think he is that anymore. So he's been a little bit better for Portland, but he still takes probably too many shots than he should.
Yeah, I watched a Portland game the other day, actually, and obviously he hit him. He was like 25 points on 10 of 12 shooting at one point.
11 of 12, I think it
was.
Yeah,
he was unreal that game, and of course it was against his Knicks, so like he was going to try his best to play well. But you can just tell that he still takes these tough shots knowing he can hit them. I mean, he hit them that game, but the games that he doesn't hit them, he just needs to do a better job of finding his teammates and realizing that, it's not all about Melo, even though it's always stay Melo for Melo.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that one. So again, I already went over my 25. So Mike, if you want to.
So my 25 is kind of a sadder story. It's Chris Bosh. I don't know how good he would have been if he didn't end up having the blood clots and everything like that. He would have been a very good player. I think he would have been higher on this list, actually. I think he probably would have been top 15.
Well, not only that, I have him at 24, so I have him just a spot higher. Not only is the blood clot something that kind of brought him down, but also I think going to Miami, I think if he had
stayed in Toronto
or even just gone to literally any other team and kind of had his own team, he might be higher on this list. It's very hard to say because he did kind of have, I would say, his prime in the 2000s. But being the third option, yes, he has his rings. Yes, he has his All-Stars. But you can kind of say, Chris Bosh he has his NBA championships, but he also had LeBron and D Wade.
He was the third option.
Yeah. So, do you want to say your 24?
Yeah, my 24 is Pau Gasol. I think Pau Gasol has been one of the more consistent power forwards / centers in the league in the past 10 years. He had those stints where he was 34, 35 in Chicago and still averaging 17 points a game and going to the All-Star game and stuff like that. And I think he had just continued to do what he does best, and that's be the offensive facilitator for teams and be able to rejuvenate into a defensive star as well. He was really, really good at what he did, and I just think that he was able to really help all the teams that he played for. Rip Portland for releasing him.
Yeah, I mean, I have Pau's brother Mark at 23. I think Marc Gasol's just been he was, again, another guy who was just invaluable to that Raptors championship team last year. He's old as dirt, but he's still somehow putting up the numbers that he needs to. And looking back at his Memphis days and averaging 17.4, 16.6, 19.5, 17.2, like he was another member of that grit and grind Memphis team, and he's kind of brought that same mentality to Toronto, and I honestly love to see it. It's fun watching him kind of orchestrate the defensive end for the Raptors right now.
Yeah, I have him at 23 as well. Just being able to change the way that he played defense and become a better help defender really helped him. Being able to control that zone they had in Memphis for a couple of years, and the fact that he was able to block shots, be the defensive player of the year. That year, he really was the best defensive player in the whole entire world.
Absolutely.
And he was able to really control the whole entire play on defense just by looking around the court and realizing, they're going to do this and this. And he almost knew what was going to happen at what time just because he's been reading it for so long.
Well, not only that, and the one thing I forgot about him, he's also a good passer for a big man.
Yeah.
He has great court vision, like you said, on the defensive end, and he translates that very well to the offensive end. Kind of seeing open teammates and that sort of thing. But moving on to my, what number are we at? 22? Yeah. 22. I have Pau Gasol. So again, it
was really hard not to put them back.
Yeah, they're looking back at it. Honestly, if I did this list again, I might put Mark over Pau. I really just put Pau over because that 2009-2010 Laker team is my favorite team of all time, and Pau Gasol was obviously a huge part in that team, and it's a shame that he wasn't able to kind of extend his career like Mark did. He might be out of the league for good now, but definitely his years in his prime with the Lakers are highlights of my my basketball watching.
I will ask, is he a Hall of Famer?
Pow?
Yeah.
I want it. That's a good question, actually. I don't think so. I would love for him to be there. I think if he had another good couple, like even not even good, but just decent couple last years in the league, he would be there for sure. I just don't think he was able to kind of have the longevity that you might need, because he wasn't at his peak. He wasn't unbelievable. He wasn't MVP. He wasn't MVP races. He wasn't a defensive player. He was none of that. But he was a very solid second option to Kobe. Mm-hmm. But I don't see him getting into the Hall of Fame. Do you?
Here's why I think Mark and Pau are going to make the Hall of Fame, because of their international careers. The way they played in Spain.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
even in the world,
that might factor into it a little bit. Yeah,
even that's like huge for the NBA. I don't think any other league really looks at that. But I mean, NFL doesn't exactly have a World Cup of football. But yeah, I just think the way that they played for Spain those years, even last year in the World Cup with Mark, he played so well for that team.
I was not factoring. I think once you do factor in that, then.
The same thing with Ginobili too. Ginobili's gonna make it because of that too.
I think Ginobili. It's hard. I don't know. It's tough because there are guys who, like, obviously you look at guys who are other places on this list, and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, for sure, he's 1,000% could be a Hall of Famer. But you look at guys like the Gasols and like I said Ginobili, like it's hard because they're on the fringe, but again because of the international stardom that they had, I think. And that might be, it might be there.
My 22 is a player that is a splash bro with Steph Curry. I think Klay Thompson is my 22. I think just the way that he is able to shoot the ball, he's got one of the nicest shots I've ever seen in my life. Sorry, Steph, but Klay's a better shooter in my opinion. And just the way that he is able to command the defensive end. He can guard from 1 to 5. He can really do everything on the defensive end. He's good on switches. He can get around screens. He's really good on being able to stay with his man. And I think it would have been really cool if he went to the Lakers and played with LeBron. I think that's the perfect.
Oh, I wish.
That would have been the perfect teammate for LeBron this offseason.
I wish.
And I think Klay is one of the hugest reasons why the Warriors did win their championship. I do have technically 3 Warriors above him, but I do think without Klay Thompson, they don't make the finals runs.
Well, and here's the thing with Klay Thompson is not only you talked a lot about his defense, going to his offense. Obviously, you can say, I mean, the most obvious thing you can say is of his shooting, and you can't deny how great of a shooter he is. But I think the thing that makes him and Steph so good together is just the way they move off the ball, and especially I'd say especially Klay, because he can get around a screen, have a sliver of opening, and say, "Cool, I'm taking this," and he makes it. Most of the time. I mean, you look at the game a couple of years ago where you had 60 on like 8 dribbles or something stupid like that. Yeah. Like just something that you just sounds like isn't even possible. It's a video game. It's that seems like something you would try and do in a video game, right? Like it doesn't seem like something that you would be able to do in real life.
Yeah, definitely don't be surprised if Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are 1, 2, and 3-pointers made by the end of their careers.
Yeah, I can. Absolutely, yeah. That was your number 22, correct?
Yes.
Cool. So moving on to my 21, I actually have Kevin Love. So obviously he's not in the best situation right now, and he is a bit of an older player, and I think he has started to decrease a little bit. But I think I would honestly say his peak was back when he was in Minnesota. They're just eating boards, and he was very much so the guy for that team, and. The games we would have 2020 like back-to-back nights or something stupid like that, like and then again, like once he came to Cleveland and was playing with LeBron, he did have to change his game, and I think he changed his game very nicely to complement LeBron. So yeah,
weird, somebody's here that I don't know. So my 21 is Jimmy Butler. I think just the way that he kind of came onto the scene, he was very low-rated. Well, not low-rated, underrated in Chicago when Derrick Rose was there. And he really developed into this most improved type player. He won the most improved award in his career. And just the way that he was able to be an offense, he came into the league as a defensive star, and then once he got here, once he developed his shots a little bit, he came an offensive star as well. And he was one of the reasons why Derrick Rose had to go, and one of the reasons why he had to go. He really is an alpha male type player, and I really like that about him. He's really a bulldog player on both sides of the end floor, and he does a very good job of not only taking charges and stopping the best player on the other team, but he also does a very good job of being a leader. For example, Myers Leonard waking up at 4 a.m. to go work out with them because he did it once.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a guy, as a teammate, you either love him or hate him. Obviously, name a few guys. Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns. Definitely didn't love him. But then you look at guys in Miami who I think he fits that system a lot better, who absolutely love him as a teammate. And I think it's important for him. I don't think he's a guy who can fit into any system, but once he finds a system that's good for him, he flourishes. And you look at the Miami team right now, about a couple days into January. He's unreal. I don't know what else to say really. But
speaking of good coaches, Eric Spoelstra, one of the top coaches.
Underrated, I would say. I think when he was teaching the teams with LeBron and Dwayne Wade, same sort of thing as Steve Kerr, where he's like, oh, he just has a good record because he has good players. But I think after those guys left and he had to kind of figure things out himself, I think he's proven that he's a good coach. He's a very good coach, yeah. 20. My 20, again, and a guy we've both already talked about, Klay Thompson. I don't think much else has to be said. I've said my piece, so Mike, who's your number 20?
My 20 is Kevin Love. We've both talked about him already, but I want to talk about how when he came to the league, he could have at any night averaged 20-20. He came in, and then suddenly you watch the next year, and he could shoot threes. I think he could shoot threes at UCLA, but not as well as he did. He won the 3-point contest that one year. I think he shot 42% one year.
Something stupid like that.
He was unbelievable. He was one of the main stretch fours with Chris Bosh. Him and Chris Bosh were really up there when it came to stretching out the floor and shooting threes.
They almost made the he was kind of the template stretch four.
Yeah, them and Lamar Odom, surprisingly, who was on crack. Yeah. So
also talking about his 3-point percentage. He was in 2017, 18, he shot 41.5% from three, which is unreal for a guy who, when he first came into the league, was not considered a 3-point shooter at all.
Yeah, so just being able to evolve his game the way he has been able to, again, props to him for being a third option for LeBron.
Free Kevin Love, though. That's all I can say. Free Kevin Love.
Send him to Portland. I think he would.
Send him literally anywhere else. I think he'd be happier, honestly. Do you want to start with the from 22?
Yeah, let's do it. So my 19 is Draymond Green.
Draymond.
So it pains me to put him on this list because
I hate him, but he's such a good piece for that Warriors team.
I personally think he's overrated, which is why he's not higher on my list. But his impact, I will say, when he did play 4 or 5 years ago, when they were the dynasty that they were, he was the best, one of the better players on the team. His defensive impact is just, you can't really beat it, honestly. He could have won multiple Defensive Player of the Years. Kawhi obviously took one from him. I mean, as I said about Rudy taking one from him, but the opposite ways. Just being able to be that consistent defensive ball stopper, that spark that comes in at the beginning of the game. He's going to play hard for you no matter what. I wish he was better on the offensive side of the floor shooting the ball wise, but his vision on the offensive side of the floor is also something that you can do. You can put him at a point guard position. He'll go out there and he'll make passes, and he'll make the right plays for you on the offensive side of the ball. But I still hate him.
Oh, I hate him too, but you can't deny. I have him at 18, so I have him a little bit higher. But I think if he wasn't on that Warriors team, I don't know if they would have been able to.
No, not at all. They wouldn't have been able to be as good as they.
No, because you look at guys Steph's a liability on defense. Let's be honest here. Klay can hold his own, but he's not anywhere near as good as on the defensive end as Green.
Obviously, Kevin
Durant, pretty solid. Then DeMarcus Cousins, we'll throw him in there, injured, right? So, yeah, Draymond Green was kind of the glue that held that team together, I'd say. And I think he doesn't get as much credit as you think he deserves for that, especially in the earlier days of that dynasty, like their 73-9 season. I think he was a huge part in that season. But yeah, so my 19, going back, is Jimmy Butler. So again, guy we've already talked about. No need to talk about him again. So moving on to 18.
So my 18 might be a little bit surprising that I do have some of the people I do have above him here. But my 18 is Blake Griffin. I think the way that he came into the league as a dunker, dominated as a dunker, let's just say that, and then he evolved his game. He could shoot the ball all of a sudden. That was one of his biggest flaks from people. I know Stephen A. Smith for a long time said he's a great player, but he can't shoot. And I think one thing that helped him do that is Chris Paul. Chris Paul was a huge mentor for him, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
And being able to catch the lobs from him, being able to have that kind of duo really helped the Clippers. I just wish they didn't blow that 3-1 lead against the Rockets that one year because we could have saw their full potential.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have Blake Griffin actually substantially higher on my list. I have him almost in the top 10. But I have a few more things to talk about later on, so once we get there, I'll talk about him. My 18, again, like I mentioned before, is Draymond Green. So again, said my piece about him. So we'll move on to 17.
17. Again, I saw on Bleacher Report that the fans had this guy at 4. I don't agree with that at all, and that's the Greek Freak. Giannis Antetokounmpo has been very good for 3 seasons. So I don't think that warrants him being as high as he should not. Like
potentially, you could say 2.5 even. Like
yeah,
I wouldn't even say 3 full seasons.
Because that one year where he exploded, most improved player. Sorry, he only averaged 17 or something. Like it wasn't even like that he exploded until the year after that, which is why they thought he was going to win most improved twice. So like he's been great. Like those 2 years, that's why he's on this list. He's been so good. He won the MVP. But the fact that people are saying he's 4. I don't agree with that, but I think he still is a very good player, and he will be going into the next decade. In the next decade, he could be 1.
Oh, I think after the next decade, he could be 1 all time. If he can figure out how to shoot, and he doesn't get injured or anything like that. Knock on wood. I mean, there's like you said, he's one of those guys that you have to game plan so hard for because. He can get a steal, take literally like 2 dribbles from half court and then dunk it. He can dunk it over people. He can just dunk it through people. Like he's about as unstoppable as a force as you can get in the league. So I do have him a little bit higher, but again I have him a little bit lower than some people might expect, just because again he hasn't been in the league for. He's been in the league for that long, but he hasn't really. Yeah,
he's been in the league for 5 years.
Good,
but like his first couple of years, he was kind of a role player off the bench.
Yeah, so, I mean, my 17, honestly, kind of the flip side of that is Dirk Nowitzki. Yes, he did play for most of the decade, but let's be honest here, his last 4 or 5 years in the league, he wasn't what he once was.
Mm-hmm.
And he's another guy, as I've mentioned before, if we were doing this for the 2000s, he'd be substantially higher, but we're not, so, but again, his game, I think everybody always knew his game was going to evolve good with time.
Yeah.
Because he never really relied on athleticism because he didn't really have too much athleticism.
Nope.
So I think, I mean, his fadeaway, unstoppable to this day. And he's, yeah.
One thing I do wish is that him and Steve Nash stayed together. That would have been very cool to see. Although Steve Nash probably wouldn't be the player he is now if he stayed on that Mavericks team with Jason Kidd and Kevin Johnson.
Yeah, that's a pretty fun what-if scenario, but I think, I think if that Dallas Mavericks team could have moved on from Jason Kidd and they could have made Steve Nash the centerpiece, that would have been pretty sick. Okay. Number 16.
My number 16. Sorry to every single person who loves this guy like crazy. He's still top 4 all time, and that's Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, I have Kobe at 16 too.
That
pains me.
And this is coming from.
I wish I could put him 1.
That comes from a guy who loves Kobe. But anyway, just going back to Kobe. Obviously, injuries kind of derailed his 2010s. He got that one. I think what was it? His ACL.
Achilles.
Achilles. Yeah.
Achilles.
That Achilles injury against Portland that ruined his season and ruined his athleticism. Honestly, he came back. He wasn't the same player. I think he came back and averaged 27 still though because he's Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, he's not shy of taking his shots. And yeah, again, he's another guy who, as you mentioned, if he could have stayed healthy for the last little bit of his career, he might be even a little bit higher on this list. I love Kobe, man. I just everything about his game. Just the way he commands the defense, and he's never been known as a great defender, but he can definitely turn on the defense when he wants to. But yeah, like you said, like that Achilles injury against I think it was Achilles was against Golden State at the end of the year. They had Dwight and Steve Nash, and then he tore his ACL or
something.
I think he tore his ACL
against Portland. He did something.
He did something to his knee. Yeah. But even after all that, dropping 60 in your final game. Yes, he took 1,000 shots. I don't care.
Yes, they kept feeding him the ball.
I don't give a shit. Yeah. That game, I've watched that game like 7 or 8 times. Like, that's one of the best ways to end a career of all time. So
not to mention he started the decade with a championship too.
Yeah.
Like he started it on top.
That was, I think, genuinely, that was one of the best. That 7-game series against the Celtics is one of the best NBA Finals I've ever seen. Just the way that, and especially even like that Game 7 was just insane. Like that series really made me a basketball fan, I would say. So, thank you, Kobe. I love you.
All right. So as we both talked about Kobe, Black Mamba out. So my 15 is Anthony Davis. I think the way he was able to come into this league, he didn't win Rookie of the Year because Damian Lillard won it that year. But I think he came into the league. He did show that raw potential that he does have.
I forgot to put Anthony Davis on my list.
Okay, that's okay. He's
yeah, I would put him around here too.
So Anthony Davis came into the league as a shot blocking kind of defensive player, and he really developed his game really quickly. Like 1 year, he just spurted. Like after his rookie year, he took off for the Pelicans. I mean, no one else is taking off for the Pelicans because they just traded Chris Paul.
Pelicans taking off.
But yeah, he really just continued to be that guy for the Pelicans, and then when he gets traded to the Lakers for some very valuable assets,
due to whatever, we're gonna win a championship there. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So yeah, he's gonna win some championships in the 2020s, I think. And he's only going to continue to rise up this list. He's probably going to be top 5 when he comes 2020 or 2030.
Yeah, no, I forgot to put Anthony Davis on my list, which is a little embarrassing, but that's fine. So I'll talk about him now. I think the thing that helped him was obviously, again, not in the 2010s, but when he was in high school, his first couple of years in high school, he was a point guard, and so he already had those. He already had the ball handling skills. He already had kind of like the point guard skills in him, and then he grew to be 9 feet tall. And I like just watching him with LeBron. At this point you throw a lob anywhere near the rim and he's going to get it, regardless if there's nobody in the way, one person in the way, 2 people in the way, 3 people in the way. It doesn't matter because his reach is just so insane. He'll find a way to get the ball and then throw it down. And I think that's just one piece of his game that makes him so unstoppable.
Man, I saw a post on ESPN the other day where it was like LeBron and AD lead the Lakers past, who did you guys beat the other day?
We played the Pelicans.
Yeah, you beat the Pelicans. And it was like, showed side by side the stats. It was like LeBron, 17 points, 15 assists. And then went to Davis. It was like 45 and 10. I was like,
no, that's the thing. I've watched both games against the Pelicans, and he's just been eating his whole team alive. I love it.
Like, he scored 42, I think, and 10, like had like 15 rebounds. And they talked about LeBron first. I think Anthony Davis is the person who's going to lead this team to the championship. I think he's going to be the player that wins Finals MVP.
Like, don't get me wrong. I would love to still have Brandon Ingram on the Lakers. I wish we had traded Kuz instead. Not at the time, but now looking back on it, I definitely wish we still had Ingram. But, I mean, I know we've threw him basically our entire future, but it doesn't matter if we can get a ring this year. And I genuinely think that the Lakers are in a good spot for that. But, again, I think that's a topic for another podcast, for another week.
I think the thing is, would Brandon Ingram have exploded this much if he stayed on the Lakers? That's a conversation we can have on a different podcast.
Yeah, we'll write that down, and we'll talk about it later.
All right, what is your 15?
My 15 is Giannis. So, again, he's not too much higher. But, again, I think if he continues the development how he's going right now and he develops, even like if he shoots like 35% from 3 and he doesn't get derailed by injuries, you could in a couple of years make the case that he's the best player of all time.
You just have to.
I genuinely believe that. I know people don't like talking about, oh, he's only like 26, 27, and you're talking about the GOAT conversation already, whatever. He could be there. I'm not saying he's there yet, but if he ends up starts being able to shoot threes, then you got to close up more on him. And his first step is so fast. Mm-hmm. He's by you and literally hanging on the rim before you even realize what happened, right? So that's a scary thought to think about.
That's not even talking about his playmaking ability, his rebounding ability.
Oh no, he can do everything.
Like he could get some defensive player of the years if he continues at this pace.
And the other thing that makes him such a great player is he genuinely seems like the nicest person in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like I would make that argument because you never hear anybody say anything negative about him. I remember reading a story from a couple of years ago how he was his like rookie year or something. He like donated all of his money. You know what I'm talking about?
I think
He gave all his money to his family in Greece.
Yeah.
He literally didn't have enough money to get a taxi to the game, so he was just running down the freeway, and so like somebody like stops it like that. Just like, who does that? So I think, you could definitely. If I was making a prediction, him or Luka are going to be number one at the end of 2030 for the decade.
I think him. I think one of his brothers will come out of nowhere too and start.
Kostas, please make it be you and stay on the Lakers, please.
I think
and get Giannis on the Lakers, please.
I think it's the high school brother, but
yeah. I mean they're all just like freakishly athletic. You look at that Thanasis dunk from a couple weeks ago, and you can there's a spark there. I could see it happening.
So my 14 is Dirk. You did talk about it a little bit, but I think the way that he started the decade really does matter for me for this list. Started off by winning that championship in 2012, 2011. 2011.
No, I think I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think that championship, because I didn't really talk about that too much. I think that's one of the most. I'd say that and the 2016 Cleveland championship are the two like most important championships of the decade.
Yeah.
Because, like you look at that was just when the Miami Heat Big Three had kind of joined, and once it was like, oh, the Dallas Mavericks versus the Miami Heat, the Dallas Mavericks have no chance. And they won. So that's one of the most important championships of the decade, I'd say. But anyway, sorry for interrupting. Continue.
But yeah, I just think the way that he led that team, like he had that game winner, that one game. In game 3, I think. Game 2, game 3. One of the two. And the way he was just able to continuously dominate that series. He outplayed LeBron. LeBron choked that series, to be fair. But
we don't need to get into that though. It's fine. We'll pretend it was all Dirk.
Yeah, we'll pretend it was all Dirk. But yeah, just the way that he invented his shot. I mean, that was before the 2010s. The fadeaway Dirk shot that everybody does now. And just the fact that he has been able to consistently improve his game. His 3-point shots was unreal until he retired. He had a couple All-Star games. And, he's Dirk. He's the greatest.
He's freaking Dirk, man. What do you want me to say?
He's the greatest, probably, international player ever. Him and Hakeem are probably pretty close.
And Steve Nash. Yeah, my number 14 is probably my favorite player in the league right now. It's Damian Lillard. He's one of, if not the most clutch player of this decade. I'm very confident saying that because, I mean, not only do you look against, I think it was 2013 against the Rockets, 2014, maybe.
2014.
That game six buzzer beater, coming around, and the thing I love about that play, and I think it's a high basketball IQ play too, is if you rewatch that, and he's in the corner, and his body language, everything says that he's not doing anything, like he's kind of slumped over and he's just kind of like casually walking, and then he just explodes, and his defender has no time to react to it. He's already gone around the screen, got the ball, and it's in. Obviously that one, then the one last year against OKC, which is one of my favorite shots of all time. Just yeah. And also, this is also a side note, but I want to bring it up. So I think it was NBA 2K14. I'm pretty sure. Back when Damian Lillard and Aldridge were the same. My brother Me and him were talking about Damian Lillard a couple. I was like during the Christmas break actually, and he was saying, he's like, yeah, I kind of invented the get shooters around a guy who drives all the time. Like on 2K14, I traded for everyone who could just shoot the ball. I'd drive with Damian Lillard and just kick it out to a 3-point shooter. So I kind of invented that style of basketball. I was like, shut up, no you didn't. It's a stupid. Yeah, I thought I'd bring that up because I thought that was hilarious.
I remember playing NBA 2K12 when you could make the my player an NBA player, and I remember the first.
Yes, I played Kobe all the time on that. Shocker, I know.
I played Dame Lillard. First game I had, I averaged 60 points and 25 assists.
Oh my god.
To be fair, I was playing on pro. I wasn't that good at 2K back then, but like, dang, was he good? And that was when
he still is. He's just.
And just going to my 13 is Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard had a very underrated decade. He won two Defensive Player of the Years. Would have been 3 if it was counted in the 2008-2009. He won 3 in a row. Just the defensive impact and all-around impact he had for that Magic team took him to the finals. Lost to Kobe. Just for his story's sake, I wish they won that championship. No offense.
But you look at that Lakers team was good and that Magic team was not. That was not a great team to be in the NBA Finals with.
Yeah, and Dwight Howard took him there.
Yeah.
And he was probably he was the next Shaq in my opinion. Like he was the next Superman. He did the dunk where he threw the ball into the net and he was Superman and everything like that. And you could just tell that this kid was special. Like you knew that this kid was going to go on and do great things. I honestly think he never should have left the Magic. I think the fact that he had his back spasms, blamed it all on Stan Van Gundy. Stan Van Gundy blamed everything on him. Then he left and had that fallout, really changed him as a person. I think
I'm happy he's back to where he seems happy playing basketball again. And I think that's one of the best stories of this year. Just seeing him smiling on the court and putting up numbers that the Lakers need him to put up. He's not doing anything super special. He's coming off the bench. I think people discredit how good Dwight Howard was this decade. I think just because recent memory you can kind of take over some things, but and obviously his past couple of years haven't been amazing. Well, but you look what he did at the beginning of the decade, and it's hard to discredit what he's done.
Even then, all the years where they were saying that he was having off years, he was
averaging like 15 points, like 8 rebounds, he
averaged like 15
blocks,
15 to 17 and 10 rebounds a game.
Yeah,
like
he wasn't a bad player, but I don't know.
He's still basically a very good player, and that's why I have him at 13.
At my 13, I have Dwight Howard at 12, which I think is poetic. I got Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin is a guy similar, I think, in terms of story to Kevin Love, who kind of came into the league as one thing, which was really just an athletic dunker.
Yeah.
You look at when he first came in the league in 2010, that dunk over the car at the dunk contest, which is iconic.
DeMar still should have won.
Yeah, he should have. I think he's evolved his game really nicely, and he's another guy who's changed his game to match the modern day NBA. And it's a shame that he's on the Pistons because that Pistons team is going nowhere fast. So I wish he would I wish him and Drummond could get out of there, but things happen.
Also, honorable mention to Andre Drummond, by the way, for the way that he rebounds the ball. He's gonna have the most rebounds.
He'll be another guy top 50.
I think
2030.
But I think he's gonna have the most rebounds of all time. That's my opinion about him. He's on pace for sure.
Higher than Wilt?
I think he's on pace still. I think he's on pace for 2,200 by the end of his career. 22,000, sorry. Jeez, 2,200.
I guess we'll see once we get there.
Right.
Number 12.
Mine is Damian Lillard. I think
Dame Dollar.
He's definitely one of my favorite players too. I definitely remember me and you trying to replicate that rocket shot over and over and over again.
Yeah, last one we were like 14 at the gym being like, yeah, pass me the ball. Oh, he shoots it, game winner. Oh, he misses, but somehow there's more time on the clock.
5 seconds left.
Yeah.
Every basketball player knows that's how it works.
Yeah, you know. If you know, you know.
But anyway, Dame Dollar has just been unbelievable. Underrated player, I think.
Super underrated.
He came in
How many times has he missed the All-Star game? That he should have been the All-Star.
3 years, I think.
Something like that.
But just the way that he's been good right out of the rip. His rookie season, averaged 18 points
19 points a game, 6.5 assists, 47% shooting from 2,
That was his
37% from 3 for his rookie year. Yeah.
That was his rookie year. Like, he's been unreal since the very beginning. He won Rookie of the Year from Anthony Davis. He has literally been one of the better players in the decade. He's been consistent. No matter what happens, he will stay loyal to the Blazers, even though I think he'll eventually leave. Sorry, Dame. But I think he's a very good player, and I think he's going to be for a very long time.
Yeah, like I just pulled up his stats here. In 2016-2017, he averaged 27 points a game, round up to 6 assists, 5 rebounds, shooting 45%, and he wasn't an all-star. How? Like, those are all-star numbers if I've ever seen one.
Because Russ was averaging a triple-double. Curry was being Curry and winning.
But not even off the bench? Like, okay, start or whatever, but off the bench?
Yeah, actually, he was an all-star that year.
I don't know. While you look at that, I'll move on to... We're number 11 now? Is that what we're on?
No, I just said 12. So.
Oh. Well, my 12, I think we already went over Dwight Howard.
Yeah.
But...
No, not 2012.
2012.
2015, 2016.
I think it'd be cool if I saw like some during like the rumor mill that Portland Trail Blazers might be trying to get Kevin Love, which I don't think he's as good as LaMarcus Aldridge, but I think Damian Lillard is just a guy who needs a dominant big man. And Nurkic is good, but he's not everything that Dame needs.
We were talking about the 2015-2016 season, right?
2016-2017.
Let's go to the next one. All right, so the guards. So we had Steph Curry and James Harden.
Which makes sense. I'm not saying he should have started, but I think
those two. Klay Thompson made it.
Sure.
Westbrook.
Sure.
Gordon Hayward was a bench player. You could have just easily replaced him with. I'm sorry, but Gordon Hayward over Dame.
Yeah. Like I know
DeAndre Jordan made it that year.
Yeah, there was a lot going wrong with those years, and even like the year before that, again, he was an all-star. 25.1 points a game, almost 7 assists a game, 4 rebounds, on 42% shooting, which isn't great. It was his career low, but still, I think that one you can make a case he shouldn't have been an all-star. But that 2016-2017 season, there's no way he shouldn't have been an all-star.
You know who was an all-star instead of him that year?
Who?
Kobe.
Okay, he shouldn't have been an all-star. He shouldn't have been. Kobe deserved it more than him. All right, well, moving on to number 11.
All right, Miguel. And this is where I start doing hella research because I wanted my top 10 to be hella researched. So my number 11 is Kyrie Irving. Obviously, Kyrie Irving hasn't played a full season his whole entire career. So obviously, when he's on the court, he's one of the better point guards in the league. The way that he can score the ball, the way that he can drive the ball is just unreal. That shot against Golden State where he won his championship is just unbelievable. You should watch it if you haven't. If you've been living under a rock and somehow haven't watched that shot, one of the greatest shots of all time, despite it not actually being like a buzzer beater, just being with 52 seconds left in the game. Anyway, I'm going to take that part out. He's 6-time All-Star, 1-time champion, 1-time Rookie of the Year. He came into the league for this Cleveland team, was really their anchor even though they couldn't win games. They slowly improved as he got better, and then LeBron came.
And even before LeBron came, he was another guy similar to Dame who just came into the league right away and was an impact player. I have him higher up in my top 10 actually, because I just think, I mean, again, just from watching games and just watching him play, he's phenomenal. So, is that all you want to talk about for Kyrie? Or?
Yeah, that's all I want to talk about for Kyrie. Just a baller, and he's going to be in the 2020s.
So my number 11 is Paul George. He's one of, if not, I wouldn't say he's not the best, but he's definitely one of the best two-way players in the league right now. And he's always been a good defensive player, but over the years in OKC and in Indiana, he was able to grow his offensive game. And he's fun to watch. It would be, again, he's another guy who kind of had a serious injury in the middle of his career with his broken leg in that USA game.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to see if that had never happened, what would happen. But again, he's still almost top 10 for this decade. He's probably going to be close to top 10 for next decade as well. He's a special player. All right, moving on to the top 10. What you've all been waiting for, if you guys are still tuned in.
An hour and 25 minutes in.
My number 10, a guy similar to Dirk, that his prime was in the 2000s, but I think his 2010s speak more volumes than Dirk's, is Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan, I would say, is the greatest power forward of all time. He's just a guy who's so consistent. He played under Pop system perfectly. He never really commanded that much attention off the court, but on the court, everybody needs to know where he was because he could do it all. He was a good defensive player for that team, good offensive player. He's one of the best all-around players in the NBA for the 2010s, so that's why I'm at number 10.
So my number 10 has already been touched on a little bit. It's PG-13, Paul George. Just the way that he's been able to grow in this league has been unbelievable. He came into the league and everybody thought he was going to be a good player, but nobody thought he was going to be this. Especially if him and Kawhi ended up being together at the very beginning. They're together now, but imagine if they stayed together. That would have been a scary lineup. Although I also don't think Kawhi would have won the championship without that. But again, that's another video we can talk about. I'm going to say right now he has played super well on both sides of the floor. And the Pacers, if LeBron was not in the West, would have won the championship. If they didn't. That Indiana team.
Really?
Yes.
What year was that?
2014, 2015, where they take them to 7. If LeBron was not in the West, I think they could have beat the Spurs. Roy Hibbert, David West, him, George Hill.
It would have been tough, but also 2014, sorry.
2014
was the Warriors. So.
Right, yes. So, yeah, 2014. Yeah, I think they could have had a good shot of winning that year. Or the year before, or the year before that. That team was good.
It would have been close. I don't know. But Paul George is another guy, as we've talked about many times on this list. LeBron's been in the way.
LeBron has been in the way.
LeBron's been in the way of a lot of guys this decade.
Not to mention, Paul George is only going to get better. And in my notes here, I wrote that he was going to win a few championships in 2020.
With the Clippers or with somebody else?
I think he's going to win one with the Clippers, and he's going to win one somewhere else.
How many? He's got 2 years left in his contract?
Yeah, I think him and Kawhi both did 2 years, so
yeah,
he got a 2-year window.
I think I can see the Clippers winning it next year because I think as much as I love LeBron, I think he's going to start falling off a little bit after this year. So I think the Lakers, as much as that's a homer pick, I do think the Lakers are going to win it this year, but I think the Clippers definitely got a shot.
Clippers are definitely their biggest threat.
Oh, for sure. Whoever comes out of the West this year is winning it.
Sorry, Bucks, you're going to lose again. And the Giannis is probably going to leave next year.
Moving on to my number 9. Again, a guy who was mentioned earlier, Kyrie. I mean, we basically said everything we needed to say about Kyrie. He's a very flashy player, but he's also surprisingly efficient, I would say. And you just watch. All you really need to watch is Game 7 of the 2016 NBA Finals there.
To know
that'll speak volumes to what he can do. And then also, I think it was the 2016 Christmas Day game against the Warriors.
Yeah.
That he had another kind of turnaround fadeaway
for the win.
At the buzzer. He's clutch. I don't know what he's going to say. He's clutch.
All right, number 9 for me is Tim Duncan. Again, his prime was definitely in the 2000s. But his value to the Spurs in the 6 years that he played in the decade was unbelievable. You see where this team is now. Imagine if this team still had Tim Duncan. This team would probably still...
Duncan could still put up,
He could probably still put up 10 and 10.
12 and 10, I'd say. He's one of those guys whose game just...
Yeah.
No matter how old you are or how unathletic you are, because he's never been an athletic guy.
No.
But his game translates perfectly to that. So.
Well, if you want to give him the ball in the post, his fundamentals are so sound. You could give it to him, he's gonna probably score every time, 9 out of 10 times. Yeah. I just think that he would have 2 championships if it wasn't for Ray Allen.
Yeah. Yeah, you would.
In this decade, sorry, not in general. In this decade.
Number 8. I have a guy who now that I'm looking at it, and honestly, he feels a little bit low. It's Chris Paul. I like him at number 8, but I don't know. He's been one of those guys that right from the beginning of the decade, he was already in his prime, and obviously he's not in his prime anymore. But I think people discard how good he is. Yes, he's overpaid. Yes, he shouldn't be making, like $35 million or something.
It's almost at 40 now or something. Something ridiculous.
Obviously, he shouldn't be making that much money, but he's still a very important piece to it. I think he could still
I think
he could still be a starter on a contending team. That Thunder team, they're not amazing, but they're definitely not as bad as I thought they were going to be.
And they're in the playoffs right now.
And that has a lot to do with Chris Paul's leadership on that team and kind of letting the young guys do what they need to do to develop. And even looking back at the Clippers, he kind of did the same thing with Blake Griffin and DeAndre. He said, "Look, I'll get you guys the ball. Do what you need to do with it, right?" So he's one of the best playmakers of not only this decade but of all time. But looking at my list, I wish I could put him higher than 8, but there's been a lot of good players this decade.
So mine is also Chris Paul at 8. I think Chris Paul has been one of the most true point guards out there. Like, he's going to defend for you.
I would say he's one of the last true point guards.
Yeah. Him and I think John Wall, once he comes back, I think he'll play more of Chris Paul's style a little bit, hopefully, because, that'd be really good.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Chris Paul definitely, he's the type of guy who's going to be a bulldog on defense, just like Jimmy Butler and all them. He's got 6 all-defensive first teams in his tenure.
Really?
Yeah. That's
surprising.
When I was looking at it, I was like, whoa.
I didn't know that, actually.
He's really good on the defensive side of the ball. He's going to – people hate him. People are going to try and
people absolutely despise Chris Paul.
Like, DeMarcus Cousins throwing the ball at his head, shoving him, making sure Isaiah Thomas doesn't shake his hand. Him and Boogie.
Here's the thing, though. Like, people hate him, and, yes, I understand why people hate him.
The flops.
The one I think it was just the Timberwolves. It was the last seconds of the game. Somebody was at the free throw line. It was this season, and he tells the ref somebody's jersey's untucked or something like that. I can't remember exactly what happened, but yeah, you can hate him for that because that's obviously kind of a snitch thing to do. But that's a high basketball IQ play. I hate to break it to everybody, but
psychs him out.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chris Paul, love him or hate him. I personally love him. I think he's one of the best guards of all time.
I love him too. I wish he ended up on the Lakers.
I hope he gets a ring. I hope he gets traded to a contender and wins a ring this year. Because he went to the Rockets, which wasn't a fit for him, because y'all know James Harden is a little bit of a ball hog. Sorry, James. You'll come up later. I'll say good things about you. But yeah, that's my number 8, Chris Paul, 7-time All-Star, 2-time assist champion, 4-time steal champion.
That's crazy, yeah. My number 7, I think honestly you could make the case that he's a top 5, top 4 player in this decade. I just personally think he's a stat pattern. I think everybody knows as soon as they said that who it is. It's Russell Westbrook. Yeah, he gets his triple doubles, but I don't see him as a guy who ever wins a championship the way he's playing right now. Even if he does have other guys around him, like this year, he's got James Harden. But I think he's similar in mindset to Melo because he wants to be the star, but I don't think he's built to be the star, if that makes sense.
Anymore,
yeah. I think he could still. Genuinely, I think he could still average his triple double, but with 14, 10, and 10 or something like that, right? And then have somebody else averaging 30 for him.
I think it was Kenny on Through the Wire. Shout out to Through the Wire. Watch you guys every week. But yeah, I think Kenny said it. I think he or Pierre, one of them said it. The fact that you can put Russell Westbrook with a bunch of average players and he'll be great because he'll be the guy. But if you put him with another star, it just doesn't work.
He's the same.
Yeah, he kind of just doesn't play his role as a second or third fiddle, right? Like when he played for OKC, when he was still trying to establish himself, that's the Russell Westbrook that people want to see, not the one that he is right now where he's bricking threes.
Yeah, like you said, he's a chill on the 3-pointers. That's all I can say. That's all I'll say about that one. But yeah, no, he's you can't deny he's a great basketball player. As much as I don't like him, as much as a lot of people don't like him, he's a great basketball player. At the end of the day, he's gonna be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah.
But I think a lot of his numbers are hollow. Is what I have against him.
Speaking of role players and people that play their roles perfectly, number 7 I have Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade is just the definition of a team player, taking all those pay cuts so that LeBron and Bosh can stay in the Heat, being able to continuously take less money so that his team can win. I mean, that 1 year where he took $25 million from the Bulls was a little bit suspect. But the fact that he plays his role perfectly, he's always going to be that guy who lets himself be the third role player, the fourth role player.
Well, and here's the thing, like, that's kind of the role he has played. But if he wants to be, he could be the number one team on any team that he wanted to.
Well, that's the thing, because his last season with Miami, he still averaged 15 points a game.
Like his retirement? Or like
Yeah.
the first time or the second time?
His like last game.
Oh.
Like his last season with Miami.
Yeah.
Like 15 points a game. Off the bench. Imagine if he started. His per 36 probably would have been at least 25. Yeah, like.
And again, he's another guy who had, similar to Kobe, just a phenomenal last game of his career.
Yeah.
Getting a triple-double.
Against the Nets.
Yeah, I have him at number 6, so we can move on to
Yeah.
number 6 here. But yeah, no, like I said, Dwayne Wade, number 6. I do think he's a little... the reason I have him above Russell Westbrook is because his stats actually mean something to teams, whereas I don't believe Russell's do.
And the rings.
Yeah. You can't discredit, what is it now, 3 rings I think he's got?
He's got 3, yeah. In the 2006 one, he was the best player on the team.
Yeah, and something I talked about lower down on the list is he was a super loyal guy in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that 1 year he decided to go to Chicago, which, I mean, that's where he's from. He wants to play for his own team. Can't discredit him for that. Year he wants to go play in Cleveland. His best rank's one there. Again, you can't discredit him for that.
And then he asked to be traded to Miami.
Yeah, and then he wanted to come back. Like, that's about as loyal as you can get from a superstar. So, yeah, number 6, Dwayne Wade.
My number 6 might be a surprise to some people, as some people might think he's higher, for example, than Russell Westbrook. But my number 6 is James Harden.
Ooh, bad pick.
James Harden, you can't go wrong. He is one of the best pure scorers in the league today, maybe even ever. Wouldn't go that far quite yet. Give him a couple more years, but he's a very good scorer. He won a 6th man of the year. I think that's one of the reasons I don't have him as high, is he started the decade as the 6th man and then kind of grew from there. A couple of years where he was still kind of meh, and then he exploded. But I think he was robbed of a couple MVPs, the one where Steph's team won 73 games, and, he didn't win it because Steph was unreal that year. And Russell Westbrook averaging a triple-double, he could have 3 MVPs. But I think that's helped him grow as a player, and I think that's helped him push and drive himself to finally win that MVP. But he's unreal, and hopefully in the next couple of years he can finally beat his playoff demons, win a championship, and continue to average 38.5 points this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I have him at number 5, so just a little bit ahead of you. The fact that he's averaging almost 40 points a game this year, and he's not even really in the conversation for MVP, is crazy, because we've just gotten so used to like, oh yeah, James Harden dropped 60 again. Like, when have we ever said that in NBA history? It's like, oh yeah, he had 60, cool, another night. We're going to 50-point triple-double, whatever. Right? Like, that just has never happened before. And so the fact that we've gotten used to watching him play is just ridiculous. So I think you can throw on any game of the Rockets this season, you can know for a solid fact Harden's going off.
Yeah.
Which is super fun to watch in a basketball game. Even if you're not a fan of the Rockets, you gotta love watching them. Minus when he's at the free throw line, 45 minutes a game.
So another reason why the Rockets are fun is because of number 5, and that's Russell Westbrook. I think it was a toss-up between him and James Harden. They have obviously played together twice now in their careers and for 2 different teams. And I have him over James Harden just because he averaged a triple-double for 3 years. The fact that you can do that, I understand that people think that it's stat padding, but I still think it's impressive. It's
impressive, but I think I would rather a guy like James Harden. Yes, I think James Harden still does stat pad, but I think his numbers just mean more. And not saying none of Russell Westbrook's numbers mean anything, because the first year KD left, I think they were the 7 or 8 seed.
7 seed, yeah.
With literally nobody but him. he basically just dragged that team to the playoffs, which is unreal, and that should be commended. But James Harden, not only can he get his on a nightly basis, but he's also good at kind of getting other people involved. And Russell Westbrook does the same thing, but he just kind of...
It just seems like
seems like he just wants his numbers. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, no, I understand people that don't like him, but I just think that I still think it's impressive enough to have him on the list of top 5 player of the decade.
That's right. So I think moving into the top 4, I think we both have the exact same list.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we have the same list, so I think we'll just kind of go back and forth on these next 4 players.
Yeah, that's kind of good.
So number 4, Kawhi Leonard.
Yep.
He started out. He didn't start at the decade as great as he is. He's really hit his prime in the past, I'd say, 2 or 3 years. But even before his prime, the fact that he was in his 3rd year and he could stop LeBron in the finals should speak volumes. The fact that he was a champion in San Antonio, decided he wanted out, went to a Raptors team that I don't think anybody really thought they were going to be as good as they were.
Yeah.
Got them a championship too. He's now with the Clippers. Yes, he has another superstar, but
he might win some rings with.
Yeah.
First superstar to ever win 3 rings with 3 different teams. Like the impact.
I would honestly say if he doesn't win another ring, I would be shocked.
Yeah, me too. Just the impact he has on a team. Like if he's not scoring points, he's stopping your best player. And it's just how it works.
That's the thing that scares the hell out of me about the Clippers.
Yeah, that team.
They have so many guys they have some guys who are just unbelievable offensively, some guys who are unbelievable defensively, and then you got your 2 best guys are both. And Kawhi is... Would you say Kawhi is the best two-way player in the last, 20 years?
Yeah, I would say that.
It's unreal how... And the thing that is just crazy about him, watching the Christmas Day game against the Lakers, he's had, I think, 30 points or whatever. And it didn't even really look like he was trying. He was locking up. He was locking up guys on defense, and his face is just like, yeah, okay, it's just another Sunday for me.
Well, that's the thing about Kawhi. I think one of the things, Doc Rivers compared him to Michael Jordan, and I completely agree with him. Yeah. I think the way that he's been able to score the ball and develop his game as much as he has and still be able to lock down the other player, I think Jordan had 10 first-team all-defenses or something like that in his career. Yeah. And he played 11 seasons. That shows you how well he played. Just the fact that Kawhi is able to do that and continuously be the best defensive player in the world.
And I can see him going for a lot longer. I know he's not a super young guy. I think he's in his late 20s right now.
27, 28, yeah.
But I can see him going for a lot longer.
And I can see, he's definitely, I think he's going to win at least 5 rings. That's my opinion.
5 rings?
Yeah, that's my opinion. He's going to win 3 in this decade.
I wouldn't go that far, but I can see another 1 or 2. But moving on. Number 3 is Stephen Curry. Mike, do you want to start this one off?
Yeah, let's do it. Steph Curry has probably changed the NBA forever. The way that he has been able to show the world how many times he can hit a 3-pointer, it's kind of ridiculous. He won unanimous MVP, and first time ever. Shaq probably deserved to win it a couple times, but I think he got 99.7 one year. So that one person who voted for somebody else. But yeah, the fact that he's been able to do what he's been doing so consistently, the fact that he can consistently score 3-point baskets at over a 40% clip throughout his career is unbelievable.
Yes,
Him and Seth Curry have been able to do it unbelievably. Sure.
So there's really 2 things I want to say about Steph Curry. First of all being the fact that he steps on the floor, everybody and their mom knows he wants to shoot. And you can still find space and shoot at a high percentage and still distribute to his teammates is unreal. You see him pass the ball, drive in, and then kind of cut around the corner. Everybody knows he wants to catch it and shoot it. And nobody can stop him because he has such a quick release. He has such a nice release. He just knows exactly where he needs to be at all times on the floor. And not even that, he can get a shot on his own. He dribbles the ball. Again, he wants to shoot it. Dribble moves, screen, boom, he's open. Second thing I want to say about him is talking about the fact that he's changed the NBA. I wouldn't say he's just changed the NBA. I think he's changed basketball as a whole. You go into any gym in the world, and there's some kids playing basketball, one of them's trying to be like Steph Curry. one of them's doing weird dribble moves and turning around and firing up like a 40-foot three. Chances are they're going to miss, but chances are he's going to hit that. And I think that's crazy. I don't think anybody outside of Michael Jordan has had that big of an impact on the way basketball is played. So moving on to number 2. I think everyone at this point can guess who our top 2 are. Talking full on Alex Caruso.
No.
So talking about Alex Caruso, number 2 obviously is Kevin Durant. Easy money sniper, KD Trey 5.
Needs to burn his burner accounts.
It's the same sort of thing as Steph Curry, but instead of just threes, it's from everywhere in the entire floor, like corner, kind of baseline, elbow, doesn't matter. He can hit it from anywhere. And the fact that he's 7 feet tall, and he has a super long, his arms are just abnormally long, and he has such a high release, nobody can do anything about it.
Well, the thing about Kevin Durant, I think, is you can look at his seasons and be like, oh, this guy is as good as LeBron, if not better than LeBron. I'm not going to say that he is better than LeBron.
I would make the case that there has been seasons this decade that he's been better than LeBron. I'm not saying as a whole he's better than LeBron because I don't really think he's that close. But I think there has been individual seasons that you could make the case that he's been better than LeBron.
Well, if you look at the twos, let's see if we can zoom this out enough so I can see both.
Side by side here.
So if you look at both of their stats, LeBron, 3 MVPs, 3 championships, 3 Finals MVPs, 3 All-Star games, 1 All-Star game MVP, 3 all-defensive first teams, 1 all-defensive second team, 9 all-NBA first teams, and 1 all-NBA third team. First of all, that's a mouthful.
Does that sound like you're rapping that?
And then you look at Kevin Durant's 1 MVP, 2 championships, 2 Finals MVPs, 10 All-Stars, 2 All-Star game MVPs, 4-time scoring champion, 6 all-NBA first team selections and 2 all-NBA second team selections. They're very similar. The only thing that Kevin...
I think the only thing that I would say the thing that makes LeBron ahead above KD is LeBron's been doing that since 2000.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say that LeBron is our number 1.
Oh, no, it's Tyler Ennis.
Tyler Ennis?
Yeah, I do. I actually have Tyler Ennis. What are we doing?
No, but I mean, everyone who collects on this video knows that LeBron's the best freaking player on the planet.
Yeah.
You literally don't even need to watch basketball to know that LeBron is going to be number 1 on this list. Let's be honest here. And like as Mike had just mentioned, his accolades, the fact that he came into this decade in his prime and he's still in his prime at 36, I think.
Yeah.
Is it's unhuman. Like nobody has ever done that in NBA history to be able to carry over. And not only does he still have his passing vision and his basketball IQ, he's still a freak of nature. Like he's a monster. Like he's just athletic as all hell. Like if he gets the ball on a fast break and you're in his way, you're not in his way. I hate to break it to you, you're not in his way because he's going straight through you and he's getting a bucket. But do you have anything to say about KD or LeBron?
Just to talk about LeBron a little bit. The fact that he made it to 8 straight finals, he beat 8 different teams that were really supposed to be the next team to beat LeBron, and he beat all of them.
You look at this decade. They're not even in the NBA Finals. It's like, the Chicago Bulls. Not in the NBA Finals. It's still this decade. The Chicago Bulls. They're the next team to beat LeBron. Didn't beat LeBron. Indiana Pacers. Next team to beat LeBron. Didn't beat LeBron. Toronto Raptors. Next team to beat LeBron. Didn't beat LeBron.
Boston Celtics. Next team to beat LeBron. Didn't beat LeBron.
He's a god. He's a freaking cheat code. I don't know what you want me to say.
That's the thing about LeBron too, is the fact that he can improve that much going into the playoffs is just ridiculous. Like he can just chill throughout the whole season, still averages 27 and 10.
Yeah, he just averages 27, 10, 6 or 7 rebounds.
And then boom, I can average a triple-double with 34 points a game. What up? But anyway, that is our top 50 players of the decade.
Comment if you disagree with anybody.
Yeah, comment below. Try and chirp us. Come at us. We'll come right back at you. Probably not, though. Thanks for listening.
And also let us know if like you would put anybody like way higher or way lower.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting to see.
Try and change our list. Make your own list. I don't care. Do what you want to do. Thanks for everybody who stayed the full 1 hour and 50 minutes that we've been doing this.
This is a marathon. Oh my god.
But hey,
I need some water, bro.
I understand why Through the Wire did a draft instead of their individual picks. But yeah, that is all from us. I think we're doing another podcast right now. So anyway.
We're gonna do another one, and then we'll probably be up later.
Yeah, so that'll probably be up in the next couple of days. This one will probably be up tomorrow. I'll try to. We'll see how the first day of school goes.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We will see you guys all later.